Alrighty, good morning everyone. It's Friday, June 18th, 2021, and we're looking at the S&P 500 futures market. We're going to get started with our pre-market analysis here, and we're going to jump to the ultra-high time frames just to take a look at what's going on up here. Still no signs of exhaustion on the 3-month. Of course, that candle is starting to look somewhat bearish there, but no indications of exhaustion just yet. Same thing on the monthly, same exact story as the quarterly there. No necessarily indications of exhaustion, but that candle definitely is starting to look pretty bearish. We have not broken below that important trend line. So for now, things still look pretty strong. And just let me correct that there. So things look pretty strong. No indications of exhaustion outside of the fact that that candle is starting to look pretty bearish right now. We get to our weekly, and that's where we get some very clear bearish indications. Remember, we had the bearish indication from the candle that closed for last week, giving us a bearish indication coming into this week. And then the continuation here on the new candle, which will close after today. So it's pretty much formed here unless we have some extreme buy, some bull run, maybe short cover rally all the way back up to the all-time highs, some crazy thing like that. If that doesn't happen, this candle is going to close and leave another very bearish clue on the weekly charts here. We get to our daily, and I do want to address the situation up here up top, because I think some people were confused by what I was talking about in comparing previous highs on RVI here. So what I was saying is when we have a push like this from a lower high to a higher high in price, and from a higher high to a lower high on the indicator, in a way this kind of resets, and then we're starting from this newer high here. If you look at the current high compared to where we were back on June 1st there, we essentially are flat, although arguably it did come up just about a percentage point there, or a fraction of a percentage point. Let me just redraw that high right there. And if you zoom in and look, it does slope up ever so slightly, but not quite as exaggerated as the push up in price. So there is somewhat of an argument there for that bearish indication off the highs. So I do want to clarify that. Because we do have it on the 4-hour and all the time frames below it, and we have it on the weekly, but the daily was the only one that maybe was not confirming it, and this is about as close as we could get to having some type of bearish indication from an RVI perspective here. Now off of the lows, this is a great example of why I say that if you have a bullish indication off of a candle, but there's still a lot of room for that candle to go before it negates that bullish indication, it's not necessarily the greatest thing to use for some type of trade entry, because you also have a lot of room below that price could revisit down here and still have that bullish indication. Well, this morning on this new candle here, which does have all of today to develop, so we could continue selling off here, or this could turn, but we do get the same indication of some bullishness here off of this new low at 4173.50. So if we draw this again, we have a pretty clear bullish indication off the low, at least for right now. So that's where we are. We don't have any bearish indications off of the most current highs. We do have essentially an argument here for the bearishness off of the all-time high, which we have again on every other time frame, from the weekly all the way down to the tick chart from that point. So that type of bearish indication can typically lead to a 200-point sell-off, which would bring us all the way back down to about 40.50 down here. So retracing this entire leg from the low that we made on May 19th. If we look at a retracement from that low, wrong button. We look at a retracement here, we are sitting just about at the 38% retracement for this specific push up. So we do have these levels below us, and then like I said, a 200-point correction would get us all the way back to 40.57, 40.60, somewhere down in here. So just want to keep that in mind. On our 4-hour here, remember yesterday we did have some nice bullish indications off of that candle that closed at 3 a.m. on this 4-hour chart. And right now, outside of, again, that bearish indication off the all-time high, we don't necessarily have any clear signals right now. So price came down here, the indicator came down here a little bit. We are getting what could be some type of bullish divergence off of the low. So as you can see here, we've pushed from the previous daily low to a lower low down here, and even arguably from that swing low where we got the bullish indication, but the price has, or the RVI has pushed significantly higher. So we're going to have to watch this level this morning. In this type of situation where you have the indicator pushing from a lower low to a higher low, but price pushing from a higher low to a lower low, you don't have that same situation that you have back on the daily here. So the price could still come down all the way to here, and we would still have a bullish indication because of this type of setup, but this is almost like the inverse of that. So technically the RVI could come all the way down to about 34 on the RVI range, and we'd still have that bullish indication. So not necessarily as concrete of a situation because we don't have an actual number in price. We just have this RVI number that we could watch. But right now there is an argument for a bullish case here. This candle closes in about 45 minutes. So this whole picture could change. So we will have to revisit this chart when that candle closes. But for now, we could make an argument for some bullishness off of the current low, kind of like we could do on the daily. When we get to our 60-minute, we actually have a very similar situation off the previous daily low down to the low that we just made. We have that bullish indication, but remember, RVI could actually continue pushing lower here, and we'll still continue to have bullish indications until we get all the way down to that about 20 on RVI. So we'll have to continue to monitor this, but this candle did officially close, so we do have an official bullish indication there from 73.50 down here, and that's somewhat being confirmed by our 4-hour and our daily indications. I'm just jumping up to my weekly here just to see if there's any type of no type of bullish indications off the lows, at least just that bearish indication up top. So let's go down to our intermediate time frames and see if we're getting a similar picture here. We'll go over to our 30-minute. And the 30-minute is not, in my opinion, is not quite agreeing with that previous daily low. Not necessarily any type of bullish indication. And in this entire local area, even going all the way back to all of the price action from yesterday, we do not have a clear bullish indication off that low. So no agreement here from our first intermediate time frame. And then this candle, which will close in about 15 minutes, is indicating some bearishness at the moment. So we do have this push to a lower high, but the indicator pushing to a higher high. And in 15 minutes, we'll know whether or not this signal stays like this, or if it does flatten out or go down, we won't have that indication. And if price pushes up above this high at 41.90.50, will also no longer be a bearish indication. So we'll have to watch this and see if it develops. Now, as far as off of the highs, you can see that over when we pushed up into this 22 area yesterday, lots of bearish indications on pretty much all the time frames up here. And then as we continue to try to push higher, we keep getting these bearish indications off of the highs. And you can see that on the 30-minute. Let me just bring up the 60-minute really quickly. 60-minute had that bearish indication over here. It also had another one just kind of like that 30-minute we're just looking at. Another bearish indication right over here. And then maybe even arguably down off of this peak, although not quite as clear. But there's definitely a lot of bearish indications on a number of these other time frames off of the highs when we start getting down into the shorter or the intermediate time frames. So what happened there? But we have this potential bearish indication right now on the 30-minute. And I just want to make the point that all of the highs up here, all through the end of yesterday's market and then through the overnight, we keep getting a lot of bearish indications up there. And then on the 10-minute, basically the same situation. You can see two that I have marked here, but then you can see there's another bearish indication right over here. Another one right over here. Could probably just go ahead and mark all of these, but essentially you have bearish indication from there, bearish indication from there, some more bearish indications from over here. So just a bunch of bearish indications up top. And then as we push down here into the local area, we have that bearish indication over here that's confirming what we see on the 30-minute. Remember, when we jump back up here, we do have somewhat of a bearish indication. We're getting confirmation of that on the 10-minute, and that candle has officially formed. So that's an official signal there. Some bearishness right there. And then off of the low, we don't necessarily have a bullish case. So here's the thing. If we have some bullish indications on the daily, the 4-hour, and the 1-hour, but then the other time frames, the intermediate time frames, the 30-minute and the 10-minute, are not giving a clear bullish indication, that's telling me there's not an alignment off of 73.50, and that we could potentially continue to push lower. And then once we get to a point where we have a 10-minute, a 30-minute agreeing with that bullish indication, that might be where we finally get that turn. Because remember, we were talking about back here that we could continue to push lower and still have the bullish divergence. Remember, this RVI could continue to go here for about 20 points or 20 percentage points on the range. Same thing over here on the 4-hour, can continue to go from about 42 to 35, so let's just call it about 10 more percentage points. And then when we get to the daily, we can push about from 41.72 to 41.55, so about 15 to 20 points in price, and still have that indication. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. If we don't have a congruence between every time frame, then that's not telling me that we're probably not going to have a complete reversal from 73.50 and pop all the way back to all-time highs. We could. Anything is possible in the market, but because we don't have agreement here on our intermediate time frames, both the 30-minute and the 10-minute, that tells me we could potentially push lower here and then maybe get a better indication a little bit lower. Right now we do have the bearish indication on the 10 and the 30 from here, and so we'll have to kind of see how far they actually take this. This could be the beginning of the continuation lower, especially since I don't necessarily have any clear bullish indications at the current market price. Let me look at the 30-minute here. No bullish indication on the 30, no bullish indication on the 10 over here. And then I'll just quickly look at the 3-minute in the very local area there to see if there's any indications. And again, we basically have the same in price, the same in RVI right there. So not necessarily any bullish indications on that 30-minute outside of having this bullish divergence off of the low at 73.50. So notice that we have our high time frames giving us bullishness off the low, and now our short time frames giving us bullishness off the low, but the intermediate time frames are not agreeing. So that tells me we probably have a little bit lower to go. and that's just going off of what my signals are telling me. So that's where we are this morning.